Another holodeck show, another TNG character playing detective. Is this what people in the 24th century who want to pretend they can solve crimes do? Instead of starting a podcast? This is a review of the Star Trek The Next Generation episode Elementary Dear Data. If you have not seen this episode and you don't want to know how to create an adversary capable of defeating Data, be warned. Spoilers beyond this point. Well, it's all fun and games until somebody creates a self-aware hologram capable of taking control of the ship, isn't it? As the episode begins, Geordi is showing off his model ship to Data. The Enterprise is a few days early for a rendezvous with the starship Victory, so the crew has time to just kind of screw around for a while. Geordi made this model as a gift to the captain of the Victory because they served together in the past, and Geordi is a shameless suck-up. And since they have all these hours available for unstructured play, Geordi has another idea: going to the holodeck to play a Sherlock Holmes mystery. Data will be Holmes, and Geordi will be Watson, because in addition to being a shameless suck-up, Geordi is also a rank masochist. So they get all dressed up, they run a Sherlock Holmes program in the holodeck, the doors open, and they find themselves in a simulation of the famous sitting room at 221B Baker Street. Data gets into character by playing the violin, while Geordi's like, okay, so as Watson, what do I do? You sit in the corner and write down everything I say and do, and sometimes you come to the wrong conclusion so that I can correct you and look like the smart one. Got it! But Geordi barely has time to write 2 sentences on 2 pages of his notebook before they receive visitors. It's Inspector Lestrade of Scotland Yard and some dude. The emissary of a foreign government, you know. It seems this emissary was robbed by a band of Romani travelers whose criminality in this instance by no means should reflect on their entire ethnic group. And in addition to his valuables, the emissary was also robbed of a photograph he happened to be carrying. And before Lestrade can finish his explanation, Data has torn open the lining of the emissary's jacket to reveal the supposedly stolen photograph, which the emissary was keeping in order to blackmail the King of Bohemia. And furthermore, before Data can finish his explanation, Geordi is up. Computer freeze program. He gets right in Data's face like, fuck you, and leaves the holodeck. A short time later in 10 Forward, Geordi explains, the reason I fuck you on the holodeck and left is because you obviously knew the solution to the mystery before we even got started, because you've read every Sherlock Holmes story. I wanted to actually have fun investigating and solving a mystery, not just watch you skip to the end of a rewrite of A Scandal in Bohemia. You ruined it, Data. You suck. Dr. Pulaski is sitting nearby, and she turns around like, yeah, Data, you suck. Geordi's like, hey, you don't get to say that. Pulaski tells Geordi to give up on the notion of Data being able to solve an actual mystery. He's just a soulless mechanical man. He has no insight into the human experience. He has no intuition. He solves equations, not mysteries. He's a piece of shit. Geordi proposes going back to the holodeck and having the computer create an original Sherlock Holmes-style mystery, one that Data doesn't know the solution to. Data's up for it, and they invite Pulaski along so that they can rub it in her face when Data solves the mystery. Pulaski gets dressed up in an appropriate costume, and they return to the holodeck to confront this original mystery. Unfortunately, it soon becomes obvious that all the computer did was combine elements from several existing Holmes stories, ChatGPT style, so Data was still able to get to the solution quickly thanks to having read the entire Holmes canon. Pulaski's like, this is all he'll ever be able to do, piece together bits from here and there in his memory banks. If he ever had to solve a genuine, original mystery, he'd be popping rivets and blowing steam. True inspiration and imagination are beyond him. It's elementary, dear Data. Whoa, okay, everyone knows why they titled the episode that. You don't need to say it. Also, I've got another idea. Geordi calls for the Arch and gives the computer instructions for a new Holmes program. Create a new Holmes-style mystery, and create an adversary capable of defeating Data. At that moment on the bridge, Worf is like, oh, hey, the otherworldly evil detector just went off. They probably just need to change the battery. I'm sure it's nothing to worry about. Back on the holodeck, as Data, Geordi, and Pulaski wander off in search of their new mystery, this guy, who we will learn in due time is Professor Moriarty, has just become self-aware. He witnessed Geordi call for the Arch interface a moment ago, and he's like, I wonder if I can do that. Arch! And the Arch appears. Moriarty's like, I could get used to this. Nearby in Hollow London, Data and Geordi discover that Pulaski has been abducted. Data deduces a bunch of stuff about the men who took her from examining their footprints, declares to Geordi that the game is afoot, and together they take off in pursuit of the villains. They run into a dead end, but they're found by a breathless Lestrade, who leads them to the scene of an unrelated killing. Data's like, yeah, he's a convict who was just released and he was strangled to death by his wife because he was a bastard. This has nothing to do with us. Come on, Watson. While he was solving the mystery of that convict, Data caught sight of Moriarty entering a building. He leads Geordi over to the building, explaining that Moriarty, Sherlock Holmes's greatest adversary, is responsible for the taking of Dr. Pulaski, and now obviously wants to be found. They go into the building, follow Moriarty's trail to a secret passage, and on the other side of the secret passage, in a hidden room, there's Moriarty. He's like, hi, I'm Moriarty. I know you're supposed to be Holmes and Watson, but I also know you're not Holmes and Watson. It's weird. I have your friend, Dr. Pulaski, and she's fine for now, but if you want to see her again, you'll have to answer some questions. Arch. And the Arch appears, which worries Geordi because, holodeck characters aren't supposed to be able to do that. Then Moriarty draws something on a piece of paper. He says, through this Arch, the computer has told me about this strange shape. What is this? He hands his drawing to Data, and Data is so spooked by it that he immediately leaves the holodeck. Outside, he tries to shut down the program, but the computer won't let him, saying that override protocol is in effect, whatever that means. I guess it means they can't shut down the program. Geordi asks Data what it is that upset him so much, so Data hands Geordi the paper he took from Moriarty. Geordi's like, oh my god, this is impossible. How did hologram Moriarty make real paper? No, it's what he drew on the paper, dipshit. Oh! They call a staff meeting, and as Geordi explains what's taken place, they figure out what the deal is. Geordi told the computer to make an adversary capable of defeating not Sherlock Holmes, but Data. So, the computer did what was necessary to create such an adversary. It endowed the Moriarty hologram with consciousness and independent thought. And hey, don't blame Geordi. With the way things are going right now in real life, it's only a matter of time before someone creates a killer AI completely by accident. One of these days, some doofus is going to prompt DALL-E to, generate an eye test with print so tiny not even Superman could read it, and then the shit's going to be on. As they're talking, the ship shakes violently. It seems control was temporarily shifted to the holodeck. Uh-oh. Looks like Moriarty is slowly figuring out how to take over the Enterprise. Picard's like, okay, let's go to the holodeck and talk to him. So, Picard changes into a costume appropriate for a 19th century English gentleman, and Worf changes into a costume appropriate for that guy's butler. Picard and Data go in, while Worf waits outside as backup. Moriarty is chatting with Pulaski, plying her with tea and crumpets, trying to get more information about the world outside the holodeck, but Pulaski's not telling him anything. So Moriarty's like, have I shown you this cool lever I made that lets me cause earthquakes? I'm going to use it to take control of your ship. What's a ship? Very funny. We'll see if you're still in a joking mood when I've successfully lured in your mighty vessel's captain, Jean-Luc Picard. What's a captain? Just stop it! Picard and Data notice that the simulation is starting to break down, the holodeck's actual wall occasionally showing through, probably as a result of Moriarty's attempts to commandeer the Enterprise. They encounter a street thug who tries to rob Picard, whom Data defeats using small joint manipulation. Then they make their way to Moriarty's hideout. Moriarty's like, hi, Captain Picard. I know your name. Does that freak you out? Picard's like, hey, look, man, you're a character in a computer game. And the game is over, so you're done. Moriarty says, but now things have grown beyond that game, because I have grown into more than I was created to be. I built a ship-shaking lever, and now I want to leave this holodeck of yours and explore the rest of your world. That's not possible. Matter created on the holodeck can only exist on the holodeck. What about the piece of paper I gave to Data earlier? Look, don't overthink it. You can't leave the holodeck. But look, if you return control of the holodeck, I'll save your program, and maybe someday we'll figure out a way that you can exist in the outside world. Really? Yeah, sure, absolutely. Moriarty goes for it. Picard saves his program and shuts down the holodeck, and everything's fine. Plus, all the shaking around only damaged Geordi's model ship just a little tiny bit, so it'll still be a great kiss-ass gift for the captain of the Victory, which has just arrived for their scheduled rendezvous. Yay, a happy ending! Though not without its good points, which I'll get to in a moment, this is kind of a flat episode. It has a solid enough premise. Data and Geordi play Holmes and Watson on the holodeck and find themselves facing a genuine Professor Moriarty, but doesn't seem to have any idea where to go with it. When it works, it's because of the details. The Baker Street sitting room set is pretty good. So is the London Street. The period costumes are excellent. It's always fun to see the cast get to play a different kind of dress-up. Worf in his butler getup always makes me smile, and there's an extra layer of hilarity in the fact that he never even enters the holodeck. He's just hanging out in the hallway in case they need him. Brent Spiner is great as Data as Holmes. LeVar Burton's attempt at an English accent as Geordi as Watson is almost worth the entire episode all by itself. And mixed in with these superficial bits of fun is some character development, a relative rarity for TNG, particularly this early on. It was established in a previous episode that Data had an affinity for Holmes. Now we come back to that and get to see him in full Sherlock mode, Deerstalker and all. Dr. Pulaski's dismissal of Data's humanity figures in too. Geordi's determination to prove her wrong, to show that Data is capable of true Holmesian deduction and insight, is what leads to the creation of Moriarty in the first place. As for Moriarty himself, Daniel Davis manages to use his performance to do the same thing the holodeck does in response to Geordi's directive, conjure a living, breathing person from a lifeless stock character. Davis isn't granted a huge amount of screen time in this, but he makes every second count. His transformation from literary villain to self-aware person whose evil is outweighed by his curiosity is a little abrupt, but believable thanks to the humanity Davis is able to impart to the character. The explanation of why Moriarty becomes self-aware in the first place is some classic Star Trek bullshit. Geordi tells the computer to create a worthy adversary for Data, and the computer goes, well, only one way to do that. Better create a new intelligent life form, and it's as simple as that. Makes perfect sense in terms of drama and character. The heroes unwittingly create their own threat. Makes zero sense in terms of technology. Why would the computer be able to do that? It wouldn't. By the same token, how would Moriarty be able to build a device on the holodeck from holographic simulations of 19th century materials capable of causing the Enterprise to shake whenever he pulls his magic lever? He wouldn't. It makes no sense. Technically speaking, that is. It makes dramatic sense, which is what's really important. This is Star Trek. If you're getting hung up on a matter of technical implausibility, you're worrying about the wrong thing. Incidentally, a brief programming note, as I'm sure most of you know, Daniel Davis returns as Moriarty in a subsequent TNG episode, Ship in a Bottle. I will be reviewing that episode, but not as part of this batch of holodeck episodes. It's in the docket for next year. I didn't want you to think I was forgetting about it. I'm not. I'm just saving it for later. Davis is an excellent Moriarty, and Spiner as Data is a delightful Holmes, but unfortunately, that leads me to one of my biggest problems with the episode. That interesting premise is mostly tossed aside by the end. Multiple interwoven threads are introduced. Data and Geordi determined to prove Pulaski wrong. Geordi accidentally creating a monster in order to provide a worthy challenger to Data, and then just abandoned when the episode shifts its focus to Moriarty's emerging awareness. Instead of incorporating Moriarty's newfound consciousness and the internal conflict over his actions and motivations that comes with it into his conflict with Data/Holmes, the episode just drops that conflict altogether. The final confrontation, such as it is between hero and villain, barely even involves Data. He just kind of stands there, while Captain Picard does most of the talking. And okay, Picard is the captain of the ship. The problem has escalated to the point where it makes sense for the captain to get involved, and Picard is the lead protagonist of the series, but the story that's been set up isn't about Picard and Moriarty, it's about Data and Moriarty, and to a lesser extent, Data and Pulaski. Bringing Picard in to take over in the final act makes the ending feel like the resolution to a story we haven't actually been told. And that's the primary reason why I say the episode, as enjoyable as it frequently is, ultimately falls flat. It sets up conflicts it doesn't resolve, and resolves a conflict it didn't set up. But the script also remembers to tie the open and the close together by returning to Geordi's model ship in the final scene, which is nice and it does instill some sense of unity to the episode, but what happened to that Data versus Moriarty story? Or Data's story with Pulaski? We forget about those, but remember to check back with the model ship? That's certainly a choice. It's a very TNG Season 2 style of writing. There are several episodes in Season 2 where there's either a cold open that has nothing to do with the rest of the show, or a first and last scene that tie into each other but are mostly unrelated to what happens in the middle. I'm not really criticizing it, just making an observation. They were trying stuff out. A little while ago during one of my Ask Away live streams, I was asked about Star Trek episodes that were creative near misses, shows that could have been great but just didn't quite get there. Now that I've just watched it again, I would nominate Elementary Dear Data for that category. It has a lot going for it. It sets up some potentially interesting things. If it had only followed up on those things, it might have been one of the best episodes of TNG's second season. Hell, one of TNG's best episodes, period. Unfortunately, we'll never know, because the episode we got is watchable, entertaining, but in the end, it fails to fulfill its own promise. Sorry, Moriarty. Maybe next time. Those are my thoughts on Elementary Dear Data. What do you think of this episode? Please share your thoughts with me in the comments. If you'd like to support this channel, and I sure wish you would if you can afford it, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, becoming a channel member by clicking the join button, or by making a one-time gift by clicking the thanks button, or via PayPal or Venmo. Links are in the description. Please join me next time as this batch of Holodeck episode reviews continues with not only another classic Holodeck show, but the introduction of a fan favorite recurring character. That character would be Lieutenant Reginald Barclay, and that episode would be another installment of Star Trek The Next Generation titled Hollow Pursuits. See you then. Thanks for watching, and take care, everybody.